I leaned my head against the bus window, my finger tracing meaningless curves into the thin layer of fog clinging to the glass. The Arizona desert wind sliced right through my jacket seams, sharp as needles on my skin. Outside, the night drifted by in silence, marked only by the towering silhouettes of saguaro cacti standing guard along the highway. We passed the sign for Paradise Valley, the wealthiest enclave in Phoenix, and just looking at it made me feel like I didn't belong. Mom sat next to me, clutching an old, worn-out purse with one strap half torn and clumsily stitched back together with bright green thread, the knots still visible. Her eyes were fixed on the darkness outside, lips pressed so tight it seemed like she was holding back words she didn't dare let out. I glanced down at her hands, calloused, joints slightly swollen from decades of juggling 3 jobs. My name is Lucas, 27 years old. A robotics engineer, or at least, that's what I tell myself to remember I still have value. I lost my left leg when I was 6, in a bike accident on a street corner near South Mountain. My dad, a frail street musician with a guitar covered in scratches, vanished after a failed gig that same day. Mom once told me that when my grandfather heard about the accident, he said to her, "He'll only be a burden for the rest of your life. You brought this on yourself." Grandpa used to be a mechanical engineer, but a string of failures had twisted him bitter, pouring all his resentment onto Mom and me. Even later, after the family got rich selling land and investing in real estate, that old shame still haunted them like a ghost they couldn't exorcise. Mom looked at me, her voice so soft I could barely catch it over the hum of the engine. "Go on. Bring your robot. Maybe if he sees it, who knows?" I gave her a weak smile, forcing down the bitterness burning at my throat. She still believed that if I just showed them my work, they would finally see me. But I had stopped believing a long time ago. The bus stopped. I stepped down, my prosthetic leg clicking with every movement, each clack echoing like a gavel on my pride. Mom tried to grab my arm, but I shook her off. I needed to stand on my own tonight, even if it killed me. The mansion blazed with light, the golden glow spilling into the garden, washing over a marble statue by the walkway. A jazz band played out front, their melody floating in the air like it was meant for someone else's life. Grandpa stood at the top of the steps, a wine glass in hand, gray suit perfectly pressed. When he saw me, his eyes narrowed, a smirk twisting at the corner of his mouth. Grandma stepped out behind him, slipped her hand into his, gave me a slight nod but avoided my eyes completely. "Oh, Lucas, you finally decided to show up," Grandpa said, his voice calm but sharp enough to cut bone. Mom trembled beside me. "Lucas, he wants to show you his robot model. He's been working so hard on it for years." Grandpa shrugged, his eyes drifting to the suitcase I was dragging. "A robot." He let out a short, dry laugh, shaking his head. "Just another cheap toy. You should learn to walk properly first before thinking about saving the world." A stab of pain shot through my chest. My fingers locked around the suitcase handle so tightly my knuckles turned white. In my head, his words rang over and over: toy. Learn to walk. Useless. A cousin tall, broad-shouldered, the youngest uncle's son, sauntered up and slapped my back hard enough to jolt me forward. "Lucas, heard you're building a robot. Nice must be great at picking up trash." "Huh." Laughter spread across the hall, low and stinging. I forced a crooked smile. Mom tugged gently at my sleeve, her eyes pleading, "Don't react. Don't cause a scene." I heard the clink of glasses, the click of high heels on marble floors. The grand foyer shimmered with oil paintings and crystal chandeliers, a long dining table draped in white cloth, crystal glasses lined up in perfect rows. The air was thick with the smell of Cabernet and roasted meat, rich, warm, and suffocating. Grandpa raised his glass, voice booming. "To our family, our prosperity, our success, and of course, to not having any extra burdens to carry." A roar of laughter. All eyes flicked toward me. My body locked up, breath shallow and ragged. I wanted to scream, "I'm not a burden, I've poured my blood into this project," coding till my fingers went numb. But nothing came out. My throat was a sealed vault. I turned to Mom. Her lips were trembling, eyes shimmering with tears she refused to let fall. She shook her head slightly, telling herself to hold it in. I bit down the rage, but my fingers squeezed the suitcase handle so hard I could feel skin break. Inside that case was a small robotic arm able to pick up objects. Move on voice command. It had taken me 3 years of soldering, collapsing over instant ramen dinners, sleeping on my workbench. It wasn't perfect, but it was my soul. That night, as the jazz music swallowed the whispers and snickers around me, I slipped out into the backyard. The wind sliced at my face, the patio light throwing my shadow, crooked and trembling, onto the stone wall. I set the suitcase down, opened it, and ran my hand gently over the dusty mechanical joints. I leaned in close, whispering, "One day, they'll bow their heads to you and to my mother." In that moment, I didn't feel the wind, or hear the music, or notice the glasses clinking inside. It was just me, Mom, and this machine. I got home just before dawn. The glow of a broken street lamp spilled through the cracked window, casting pale light over a cramped room cluttered with old circuit boards and scorched bits of plastic. This beat-up mobile home on the outskirts of Phoenix had been our only shelter from storms and heat waves for over a decade. Winter nights in Arizona weren't the wet, bone-soaking kind. They were dry, sharp, slicing right into your marrow. Mom lay curled up on the battered sofa, clutching an old family photo. I stood still for a moment, studying the wrinkles around her eyes. She still wore the same outfit from the party, her shoes frayed at the heel. She stirred at the sound of my steps. "Lucas, did you eat yet? There's some canned noodles in the cupboard. I got them on sale last week." Her voice was raw, like she hadn't slept in days. I just nodded and slipped into my corner of the room. I didn't want her to see my eyes, still red and stinging. I wasn't hungry. I just wanted to drown myself in the pile of scrap metal, my one place where I could breathe. The corner was stacked with motherboards, motors stripped from old printers, busted laptop shells, swollen phone batteries, all junk to someone else. To me, it was treasure. I dug into my bag and pulled out a motion sensor I'd salvaged from a trash heap behind a rich neighborhood last week. Every scrap of metal felt like a new artery feeding my heart. I knelt down and began disassembling the half-built robotic arm. Sparks spat from the wires, the smell of burnt plastic rising up and making me close my eyes. The heat, the tiny crackle of the soldering iron, it all hypnotized me. I remembered all those nights, the old clock ticking heavy, each second like a hammer blow. Mom in the kitchen patching up her purse or counting out coins after her shift. Sometimes she'd come home to find me passed out on the floor, clutching a metal frame to my chest. I'd wake up to her sobbing quietly, her frail shoulders shaking as if the wind was twisting her apart. There were times I thought about giving up, selling all this scrap, getting a full-time job, waiting tables, burying the crazy dream of building a robot. But every time I saw her or my prosthetic leg, I remembered what she once told me. "You're not behind anyone. You just need more time." On those blistering Arizona days, I'd siphon power from a nearby gas station to charge my batteries because we couldn't pay our electricity bill that month. I got chased off more than once, treated like a stray dog by security guards. There were nights I sat by the chargers in the parking lot, eating the cheapest bag of chips I could find, guarding my robot like it was my lifeline. One evening, as I was coiling cables, there was a soft knock at the door. It was Mr. Mark, my old high school science teacher. He was the only one who hadn't laughed when I said I wanted to build robots for people with disabilities. He brought a small box of spare parts and a few worn technical manuals. "Lucas, these have been sitting in the school storage forever. I figured you might know what to do with them," he said, glancing around like he had more to say but chose to swallow it. I took them, my throat tight. "Thank you. Really. Thank you." He patted my shoulder, not heavy, not pitying, just like an old friend. After that night, I held on to those new parts like they were a lucky charm. I stayed up almost till sunrise, hands trembling but never stopping. Once, I burned my wrist on the soldering iron so badly it bled down my arm. I just slapped some tape on it and kept going. My robot, I called it Halo 1, was still ugly, its joints stiff, wires tangling like a nest of snakes. But each time it managed to pick up a water bottle without tipping it over. My heart would nearly explode. It wasn't just a project. It was proof I existed. One night, Mom came home from work and found me tinkering. She stood there a long time, then finally smiled a rare, bittersweet smile full of pride and quiet ache. You know, even if they don't see you, I always believe, as long as you believe in yourself. I looked at her, my hand resting on the cold metal joint. Tears fell down my face for the first time in years. A few days later, I saw a poster for the National Robotics Innovation Competition in San Jose. Top prize $500 and $1,000 and an investment offer. My whole body shook as I read it. When I told Mom, she just stayed silent, then placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. If you want to go, I'll find a way to get you bus money. Don't worry about me. I nodded, knowing she'd skip meals for days, cut her arthritis meds. I had never felt so small and yet so determined to stand taller than ever. Halo 1 sat waiting in the corner, its circuits blinking faintly like it was breathing. I bent down and whispered, "It's you and me. We don't have a way back." That night, the desert wind still howled through the thin boards, but I didn't feel cold. My heart was burning, each beat syncing with the crackle of the soldering iron, like an overture to a war I had no choice but to fight. Thanksgiving came faster than I expected this year. Outside, the whole neighborhood was decked out with golden string lights, painted pumpkins, giant turkeys, and welcome home signs hanging from every porch. But to me, that word home never felt like it belonged to me. Grandma called. Her voice was dry and brittle. "Come for dinner. You can bring him too." I watched Mom grip the phone, her lips pressed tight. She nodded softly, then turned to me with a flicker of hope so fragile it almost hurt to look at. "Lucas, this time, bring Halo 1. Maybe they'll finally see you. Just once." I couldn't crush that fragile hope. I stayed silent, nodded, and pulled my old suitcase from the corner to check Halo 1 one more time. It was still ugly, the joints unpainted, wires tangled like the scar tissue on my own skin. But it could stand, respond to voice commands, pick up a water bottle, lift a pill bottle, things that had taken me 3 grueling years to achieve. We took the bus back to Paradise Valley. Outside, the mansion glowed like a glass palace. I could hear jazz music, smell wine and roasted meat drifting all the way to the gate. My chest felt like it was filled with stones. The door opened. Grandpa appeared, black suit, deep red tie, eyes cold as steel. "Oh, Lucas, you brought your little darling." "Huh," he said, glancing at the suitcase, lips twisting into a slight sneer. I looked him straight in the eye, fighting to keep my hand steady. Mom stood beside me, gently squeezing my arm. Inside, the chandelier sparkled off the marble floors. The dinner table stretched long, draped in silk, silverware lined up with military precision. I heard laughter, glasses clinking, the music thumping in my skull. My cousin Brian, tall, broad, still wearing that slick football player hairstyle, swaggered over. "Lucas, you actually brought your kitty toy here. Should I live stream this genius invention for everyone?" I tightened my grip on the suitcase handle, gave a crooked half smile. "Go ahead," he laughed, tipping his chin to his buddies. "Look at this Arizona's Tony Stark about to give us a show." Laughter erupted. An aunt leaned toward Grandma and muttered, "He should learn to walk properly before playing engineer." I bit down hard enough to taste blood. Mom tugged my sleeve, her eyes pleading. I nodded to reassure her, then quietly set the suitcase down in a corner. Grandpa stood, raising a glass of red wine, Our family. Tonight we gather to celebrate success, honor, and the strength to rise above. We are proud of those who truly break through, not dreamers tinkering with meaningless toys. I stood frozen, each word punched right through my chest like a bullet. Mom lowered her head, clutching her dress, her hands trembling so violently I could see it from across the room. Her shoulders quivered before she turned away, hiding her tears behind her arm. In that moment, every sound vanished. I could only hear my heartbeat, hammering like a sledgehammer in my ears. I wanted to lunge at him, to scream in his face that Halo 1 wasn't a toy. I had poured blood, sleep, and every ounce of dignity I had left into that machine. I took a step back, then turned and walked to the suitcase. My hands shook so badly I could barely grip it. I dropped to my knees, opening it. Halo 1 peeked out, its LED light flickering like a dying breath. I ran my hand along the cold metal frame, that familiar chill crawling up my spine. I didn't build you so they could laugh. I built you so Mom would never have to bow her head again. Suddenly, I heard light footsteps behind me. "Mom, Lucas," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Don't. I don't want you to get hurt anymore." I looked up. Her eyes were wet with tears but still held a faint, stubborn glow, a small flame of belief. I took her hand and squeezed. "I have to keep going. For you." She trembled, then pulled me into a hug. Her warmth spread through me, touching every hidden wound I had buried. Inside, and the laughter went on, the jokes slicing through the room like knives. But in that hug, in that moment, only Mom's warmth held me together. I stood up, pulling the suitcase closer to my chest. A thought flared in my mind. If they won't see me here, then I'll make them see me somewhere they can't ignore. Not here somewhere the whole country will watch. I left the table, walked past the rows of chairs, through the jazz band as they slid into their final notes. Mom followed quietly behind me, her eyes still shimmering. Outside in the yard, I stopped, taking a deep breath. The Arizona night air was cold enough to sting, but I lifted my head to the star-splattered sky. Every star felt like a distant promise, so many people out there, waiting to see me prove it. I rested my hand on the suitcase, whispering into the narrow seam, "We'll show them. Not here, in San Jose, in front of everyone." Mom stepped forward, her hand on my shoulder, silent, but I knew even terrified. She stood with me. That night, on the way home, I saw it in her eyes, not despair, but determination. And for the first time, I felt no fear of their ridicule. Only one goal burned inside me: to force them to watch me rise, to make them understand that her son was no cheap toy. I curled up on the floor of my makeshift bedroom, back pressed against a flimsy wooden dresser, eyes locked on the blinking circuitry of Halo 1. The Arizona night crawled in through the cracked window, the cold wind drying the sweat on my neck almost instantly. In the days after Thanksgiving, Mom worked nonstop morning shifts at a cafe, evening cleaning offices, and picking up extra laundry gigs on weekends. I knew she was trying to scrape together enough for me to compete at the National Robotics Innovation Competition in San Jose. I used to think being smart and talented was enough for people to recognize you, but life taught me something else. Sometimes you have to stay silent, prepare like a predator waiting to pounce at the exact right moment. During the day, I worked as a waiter in a tiny Mexican diner near home. I kept my cap pulled low to hide my face, each step heavy and painful with a prosthetic leg. But every night, after locking the door, I pulled out Halo 1. Some nights, the power got cut. I worked under the dim flicker of an old flashlight, its battery dying so slowly it glowed like a dying firefly. I stripped chips from scrap laptops, rewrote code by hand, hacking together navigation software from an old robotics forum, stitching it line by trembling line. One night, when the force sensor failed, Halo 1 dropped a water bottle, shattering it across the floor. I sat there in the puddle, gripping its metal arm, smashing it against the ground until sparks flew. I collapsed, shoulders convulsing. Then Mom came in. She didn't say a word. She picked up every shard of glass, wiped the water, and sat next to me, her trembling hand resting lightly on my shoulder. "Don't let one failure make you forget everything you've survived," I sobbed, burying my face into her shoulder, like a kid, something I hadn't done in years. The next morning, I opened an email. "Congratulations. You've qualified for the National Robotics Innovation Competition Finals." I froze. My vision blurred, hands trembling uncontrollably. I screamed, clutching Halo 1 to my chest like it was my own heartbeat. Mom ran in, saw me and the dusty, broken robot, and she burst into tears. I couldn't remember the last time I saw her cry from joy. From that moment, everything sped up. I lost weight fast. My fingers were always wrapped in bandages, burned and cut. Blood smeared across my keyboard, dripped onto wires, but I didn't care. I told myself this is the price in blood for every line of code. Every step Halo 1 takes. One night, Mr. Mark, my old science teacher, showed up. He saw me exhausted, dropped a bag of cold sandwiches and a bottle of water on the table. "Lucas, do you know why I believe in you? Because you never waited for someone to save you. You saved yourself." I looked up at him, my lips trembling, eyes swimming. He just patted my shoulder once, softly, and didn't say another word. As the competition drew closer, I knew I had to keep my plan secret. After Thanksgiving, Grandpa started spreading rumors to the family that I was delusional again, begging Mom for money with another fake project. I heard every word, but I stayed silent. On the final night before I left, I checked every wire, every control chip, every backup battery. I had one shot. Halo 1 wasn't 100% perfect, but it was ready to stand beside me. Mom came in, holding an envelope, her savings, tip money, paychecks, even cash from pawning her old wedding ring. "Lucas, this is enough to get you to San Jose. I believe in you." I took the envelope, feeling her hands trembling from cold and fear. I pressed her palm against my face, swallowing the knot in my throat. "I won't fail this time. I promise." She smiled faintly, tears streaming down her gaunt cheeks. "To me, you've never failed." That night, I lay beside Halo 1, my head resting on my toolbox, my hand gripping its cold metal arm. I whispered to it like a comrade before battle tomorrow, "It's our day. I don't need Grandpa. I don't need their approval. I just need Mom to see me stand tall." The desert wind slipped into the room, teasing the glittering wires. In that moment, I knew no matter how many scars, no matter how much my leg ached, I wasn't going to stop. Tomorrow, Halo 1 and I would step onto the biggest stage of our lives, and for the first time ever, I didn't feel fear. I only felt a fire roaring in my chest, racing through my veins, louder than any insult ever carved into my skin. That morning, Phoenix was still wrapped in mist. I stepped quietly out of our mobile home, dragging Halo 1 behind me in the battered suitcase. Mom stood at the door, the wind tossing her hair over her thin shoulders. Her eyes glistened not with fear anymore, but with a pure, unwavering trust. She gave a small nod, a silent blessing. I hoisted the suitcase onto the long-distance bus, feeling like I was carrying my own thundering heart inside. San Jose greeted me with a damp, biting cold, nothing like Arizona's dry chill. I wheeled Halo 1 across the crowded square, taking in the sleek glass buildings and the competition posters plastered everywhere. People hurried by in thick jackets, clutching their coffees, eyes sparkling with faith in a technological future. I lined up to register, my hands trembling nonstop. One of the check-in staff glanced at Halo 1 and snickered. "Man, this thing looks ancient. Well, good luck, buddy." I nodded slightly, gripping the suitcase so hard my knuckles turned white, swallowing the anger clawing at my throat. The night before the competition, I stayed in a cheap motel near the convention center. The room was cramped, with a sagging metal bed and the heavy scent of mold. I spread all my tools across the floor, checking each wire, resoldering every loose joint. I stayed up all night, the acrid smell of burnt plastic clinging to my nose. At exactly 5 a.m., just as I'd finally dozed off for a few minutes, I heard a loud knock. I jolted upright, opened the door and froze. Brian, my cousin. He wore a black hoodie, a duffel bag in hand. His eyes swept over the room, landing on Halo 1 in the middle of the floor. Oh, still into this metal junk. Huh, Brian sneered, shoving past me into the room. I stepped in front of the robot, my voice raw. Get out. He laughed, dropped his bag, and leaned in close. You think you're going to make the family proud? Make me look like a joke when you win? I won't let that happen. I locked eyes with him, catching a glint of something wild and cruel. Don't touch it. But he didn't listen. He kicked the suitcase hard. Halo 1 toppled over, its arms snapping off, wires spraying across the floor. My vision went white. I lunged to stop him, but he shoved me back. I crashed into the bed frame, my head exploding with pain. I heard the sound of breaking more than just plastic and circuits. It felt like my spine had cracked in two. Brian smirked, flinging a broken shell piece to the ground. Congrats. Genius. Now you can crawl home and cuddle your worthless dream. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the wall shook. I dropped to my knees, staring at Halo 1's shattered frame, its wires spilling out like guts. I clutched my head, my heart pounding out of rhythm, my breath slicing in ragged bursts. I wanted to scream, to destroy everything. But in that hollow moment, my phone rang. Mom, Lucas, are you okay? I saw the live stream this morning. Everyone's talking about the contest. Did you eat something? Honey. Her voice was tired, fragile, but filled with endless care. I swallowed, wiped my tears, pressed the phone to my ear. Mom, do you still believe in me? She paused, then her voice trembled. Sweetheart, I always believe. Even if the whole world turns away, I'll always believe in you. I set the phone down, taking a deep, shuddering breath. I looked at Halo 1. Every broken shard reminded me of sleepless nights, burned fingers, and Mom's patched-up purse because she'd spent her last dollars on my parts. I forced myself up, digging into my toolbox. I pulled out my last coil of solder wire, backup circuits, scraps of old chips, electrical tape. My hands shook as I started reattaching the joints, soldering each piece. Every spark stung my eyes, smoke choked my lungs. I thought I might collapse. But every time my hands faltered, I saw Mom, those thin shoulders, those calloused hands, that worn-out but unbreakable smile. I didn't know how many hours passed. All I knew was that by the time I finished the final circuit, the sun had risen high, shining through the grimy window. Halo 1 stood, leaning slightly, its arm trembling, its light flickering weakly, but it was standing. I smiled, blood seeping from my lip where I'd bitten down too hard. I pulled the suitcase over, packed Halo 1 inside, and zipped it shut. Sweat and blood soaked my shirt, but I felt no pain. Panting, I muttered to myself, no one gets to kill my dream. Not Grandpa, not Brian, no one. I threw on my jacket, hoisted the suitcase, the prosthetic leg thudding on the tile floor in steady, unbreakable beats. In my mind, there was only one command: get up, move forward, never back down. I stepped out into the bright morning street. Each step pushed blood to my head. Every heartbeat roared like a battle drum. They will see. And this time, they can't look away. The convention hall in San Jose was packed wall to wall. Stage lights spilled across the gleaming wood floors, bouncing off expensive suits, elegant evening gowns, and hundreds of eager, watchful eyes. I maneuvered through rows of spotless display tables, hearing the whirring hum of pristine robots, sleek and shiny, praised endlessly by the passing crowd. I pulled Halo 1 behind me, my hands shaking, my shoulders screaming from the all-night repairs. Every step with the prosthetic leg scraped against my bone like a knife. I stopped at my exhibit space, unlatched the suitcase, and pulled Halo 1 out. A volunteer took one look, her eyebrows pinching together at the sight of the dirt-streaked, crudely welded machine. You're sure you want to show this?" she asked, her voice gentle but hesitant. I only nodded, then carefully set Halo 1 upright. It swayed for a moment, then steadied, the LED light pulsing faintly like a fragile, tired breath. A small crowd drifted over. An older man snorted. "This looks like a high school science fair project." A middle-aged woman shook her head. "It'll probably topple over before it can even lift a cup." I heard every word, my ears rang, but I kept my gaze steady. I pressed the startup button. Halo 1 shivered, joints clicking, then slowly lifted an arm, grabbed a water bottle, and set it down on a tray. Then it rotated, bent its arm, mimicking the motion of helping a patient sit up. The onlookers began to murmur, some leaning closer. A young boy with big glasses at the front fence watched, eyes wide. "Wow, he looks like a superhero helping my uncle at home," he whispered. His mom tugged at his sleeve, but he stayed locked on Halo 1. In that instant, every other sound vanished. All I could hear was my own heartbeat and my mother's voice echoing, "As long as you believe in yourself." That's enough for me. Then it was time for the main stage presentation. I stood there, gripping the microphone, blood seeping through the bandages on my hand. "Hello, my name is Lucas. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. This is Halo 1, a support robot designed specifically for the elderly and disabled. It can detect a fall, assist in standing, grab objects, remind about medication, and offer comforting words in a customized voice." I scanned the audience. Some tilted their heads. Some shook theirs. I took a deep breath and pressed the command button. Halo 1 shuffled forward, slow but certain, up to a mock patient mannequin. It gently slid an arm behind the back, lifted carefully, and placed it onto a chair. The entire hall fell silent. Then, from one corner, applause began. A white-haired man stood, clapping slowly but firmly. Then another. Then an entire row. The clapping spread like wildfire. My vision blurred. Down below, I saw the boy with glasses jumping, shouting, "Go, Robot Hero." At that moment, reporters from TechCrunch, Wired, and local TV stations surged forward. Camera flashes burst like fireworks. One reporter shoved a mic toward me. "Lucas, how does it feel seeing Halo 1 in action here?" In front of all of Silicon Valley today, I choked up. I looked at Halo 1, its trembling arm raised as if waving. "This isn't just a robot. This is my mother's dream. It's how I prove that nothing and no one can kill your belief if you hold on to it." The applause thundered again, this time shaking the entire hall. I looked up and saw my face on the giant screen, with the caption below, "Breakthrough Inventor from Arizona." My phone vibrated endlessly. A message popped up from Mom's son. I saw it. "You were incredible, and I'm so proud of you." I broke down. Hot tears streamed down my face, salty on my lips. I remembered those nights sleeping next to scrap metal, her trembling hands counting coins, the cruel laughter from Grandpa. On the live stream back home, Grandpa and Grandma sat stiff on their giant sofa, faces pale, frozen. Brian's face twisted, his hands trembling as he backed away from the camera. Right after my demonstration, an investor rushed up, shaking my hand, slipping a $2 million contract into my palm. My knees almost buckled. "Lucas, we want to deploy Halo 1 across nursing homes nationwide. This is exactly what America needs." I nodded, lips trembling too hard to form words. I could hear Mom's voice not through the phone, but deep inside me, "You've never failed." That day, I didn't just win an award. I shattered every wall of ridicule, stepped onto the stage of life itself, and proved to the world, and more importantly, to my mother, that Lucas was never worthless, never a burden, never a cheap toy. Halo 1 stood beside me, its LED flickering, slowly raising its hand as if waving to the world. And for the first time, I smiled the smile of a man who had risen from the very bottom. 3 days after that victorious night in San Jose, I returned to Phoenix. Our tiny mobile home seemed to glow brighter, warmer somehow, even with the desert wind whipping red dust across the sky. Mom was waiting at the door. The moment I stepped off the bus, she rushed to me, frail but hugging me so tight it felt like she was afraid I'd disappear. You did it. Lucas, she choked out. I hugged her back, finally letting my tears fall without shame. I buried my face in her hair, breathing in the scent of sun, cheap detergent, and every sacrifice she had ever made for me. That afternoon, my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from journalists, investors, hospitals across America. But then, one call froze me in place. Grandpa. I saw his name flash on the screen. My grip tightened until the veins in my hand bulged. I answered but stayed silent. His voice trembled, stripped of arrogance, stripped of scorn. Lucas, could you come talk to the family? Your grandmother and I, we really want to see you. I said nothing. I hung up. The next morning, Grandma called. Her voice was raspy, broken, as if she'd been crying all night. Lucas, I'm sorry, and I know we were wrong. Please, come back. The family needs to stay together. I listened, but all I felt was emptiness. That afternoon, I made up my mind to go back to Paradise Valley one last time. I needed to close that chapter. Mom sat quietly on the couch, her hand gripping mine, eyes full of worry. I nodded to her, as if to say, trust me. As I stepped into the mansion, the wind blew the sheer white curtains up like ghosts. Grandpa sat on the sofa, pale, hands trembling. Grandma stood behind him, eyes swollen red. Brian hovered by the staircase, head lowered. Grandpa tried to stand, forcing a stiff smile. Lucas, I'm sorry. I didn't understand. Didn't realize how talented you were. Please, forgive us. Come back. Save the family's honor. I looked at each of them faces that had once thrown daggers of scorn, voices that had spit every cruel joke at me. I inhaled deeply, feeling a cold steel run along my spine. I stepped forward, locking eyes with him. Since I was a kid, you called me a burden, a leech, worthless. But you never understood. I never needed your saving, and I never needed your approval. Grandpa started shaking, his lips quivering. Grandma buried her face in her hands, sobbing. Then I looked at Brian, the cousin who shoved me, stomped on Halo 1, tried to crush my last hope before the competition. He shrank back, gripping the stair railing, his face drained of all color. Thank you, I said, my voice low, each word sinking into his skin like a blade. You smashing my robot. It taught me how to fight until the very last breath. You didn't destroy me, you made me stronger. Brian collapsed onto the steps, sobbing. I felt no pity. Grandpa slumped into his seat, his hand trembling violently. Lucas, I just wanted to protect the family's reputation. Now everyone knows. Our family's been humiliated. I let out a soft, almost amused laugh. You care about your reputation? I care about my mother. I didn't come here to save your face. I came to say goodbye. I turned around. My steps were firm, the click of my prosthetic leg echoing through the marble hall. At the doorway, I paused. Oh, Halo Robotics is opening its first headquarters in San Jose soon. You'll probably read about it, but you don't need to come. No one replied. Only Grandma's muffled sobs and the sound of Brian's fists slamming the railing echoed behind me. I stepped outside, the night wind cool on my face. Mom waited by the gate, eyes glimmering. I nodded. She smiled, opened her arms wide. I ran to her, holding her tighter than I ever had. A month later, Halo Robotics officially launched. The first office overlooked the Santa Cruz Mountains. Glass walls catching the fiery sunset. I signed multi-million-dollar contracts with nationwide elder care networks. Hundreds of nurses and doctors requested Halo 1 units. Time magazine put me on their cover, the one-legged man revolutionizing American healthcare. The day I saw that cover, Mom was in our new apartment's kitchen, humming softly as she cooked dinner. For the first time, I saw her truly at ease. I stepped onto the balcony, watching the city lights blink like distant stars. I took a long, deep breath, not from exhaustion, but from finally tasting true freedom. No more weight, no more insults, no more lies. Halo 1 stood in the corner of the living room, its LED light pulsing gently, almost as if it were smiling. I whispered, "We did it, and we didn't need anyone to save us." The night sky over San Jose stood witness, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly alive.